Ed, we can cover a whole bunch of ground. I'm going to let you take us wherever you want to go. So year end is coming. We've got a whole bunch of economic circumstances going. We've got political things going. You travel North America, training, speaking to business people. What do you want to talk about?
Well, there's a lot of things we can talk about. And I recently did a little Minute to Win It, one of our little broadcasts where I talked about how do we avoid letting macroeconomic factors impact us. And I talked about, Ron, macro, we can't do anything about macro. We can do what we can is we can focus on micro. And in the last recession, I want to make sure I cite the data right. 14% of companies actually grew at least 9%. So how do we become a 14%? And we were talking a little bit beforehand. I said, the end of the year is also the time to reflect. The year is done, right? Like you're going to close what you've got if you're in sales. You're going to deliver what you need to deliver if you're in service or something. You're going to make what you need to make if you're in manufacturing. But it's really time to reflect and think about the next year. And I always like to reflect on us as humans and not necessarily as business people. And I mentioned to you about our dash. You and I both know what our dash is, but I'm going to ask the audience to just consider a number for a moment, and then we'll explain what that number means. And that number is if you write, if you create a zero on a piece of paper, put a decimal point to the right of it, put 7 more zeros and the number 2. So 0.70 is number 2. That number, Ron, represents an 85-year lifespan over the age of the earth. Not a lot of time, right?
Wow, that puts it in context, doesn't it?
And I call that our dash. And that takes the 4 years we were born. And we're on this dash, right? If you're listening to this podcast, you're on your dash. And our dash is not necessarily comfortable. When we see, a person's lifespan, it's a straight line. It's really not a straight line in life. Our dash is uncomfortable. Our dash, it could be like jagged lines. It could be spaces in between that line. And so I wanted to talk about meaning and connecting what we do to some kind of performance today. We're talking about topics. I'm like, hey, it's the end of the year. Let's reflect on ourselves, our lives, how we're making a difference, what's important to us, those kind of things. So if you're okay, that's where we're going to go.
I think that's wonderful. And let me just interject a personal note. In the 50-year span that I've been working, when I started, 1968, tough market for hiring. Everybody said, take your time, Ronnie. You're going to be with them for the rest of your life. There's been many, many books written about generational changes and transformation. There's a lovely book by the name of The Fourth Turning from a MIT professor, Peter Senge. And what we've seen in the 50 years of my lifetime is the average number of jobs in a career go from 2 to 10. So that dash is not static. We have the opportunity to reinvent and redevelop and recreate ourselves over time, but not a lot of people think about that.